Hello everyone, and welcome to the English Globe. I hope you all are doing well and having a great day. It's always a pleasure to have you here with us, ready to take another step forward in your English learning journey. Whether you're listening at home, on your way to work, taking a walk, or just relaxing with a cup of tea or coffee, we are truly happy to be a part of your learning process. Learning a new language is a challenge, but with the right guidance and consistent practice, you can improve faster than you think.
That's absolutely right. Learning English, or any language for that matter, is a journey that takes time, effort, and patience. But the good news is that there are many simple yet effective ways to make the process easier and more enjoyable. In today's episode, we're going to talk about something that every English learner struggles with at some point: fluency. Many learners understand English. They know a lot of words. They even know the grammar rules. But when it comes to speaking, they find it difficult to express their thoughts smoothly. If that sounds like you, don't worry. You're not alone, and today we are going to help you overcome this challenge.
Yes. I think one of the most common things I hear from English learners is, I can understand English when I listen to it. I know a lot of vocabulary. I even read English books. But when I try to speak, I get stuck. I hesitate, I forget words, and I don't sound natural. If you've ever felt this way, don't feel discouraged. The truth is, fluency is not just about knowing words and grammar. It's about using them naturally, smoothly, and confidently in real conversations. And the best part? You can improve your fluency much faster than you think if you use the right techniques and practice in the right way.
That's why today's episode is so important. We are going to share 7 simple tricks that can help you boost your English fluency quickly. These are practical strategies that don't require any expensive courses, special apps, or complicated study plans. They are easy to follow, everyday techniques that you can start using right away, no matter what your current level of English is. Whether you're a beginner or an intermediate learner, these tricks will help you gain confidence and speak more naturally.
And here's the best part. This episode is not just about theory. We are going to break down each trick in detail, give you real-life examples, and even some fun and interactive challenges that you can try at home. We want this to be more than just a podcast you listen to. We want it to be an interactive learning experience where you actively participate and practice as you go.
That's right. So, we encourage you to stay with us until the very end, because each of these 7 tricks builds on the others. By the time you finish this episode, you will have a complete set of tools that you can start using immediately to improve your English fluency. And if you stick to these techniques consistently, you will notice a big improvement in your speaking skills in just a few weeks.
Yes. And here's something to keep in mind. Fluency is not about being perfect. It's not about knowing every single English word or speaking without any mistakes. It's about being able to express yourself clearly and confidently. Even native speakers make mistakes, pause, or search for words while speaking. The goal is to keep the conversation flowing and communicate effectively.
Exactly. So if you've ever felt nervous about speaking in English, if you've ever hesitated because you weren't sure about the right words to use, or if you just want to sound more natural and fluent, then this episode is definitely for you.
So, grab a notebook, find a comfortable place to listen, and get ready, because we're about to share some powerful and practical techniques that will take your English fluency to the next level. Let's get started. All right. Now that we've introduced the topic and set the stage, it's time to dive into our very first trick to boost your English fluency fast. And this is a big one. It's something that can make a huge difference in how quickly and naturally you start speaking English. Are you ready? Here it is. Listen more than you speak. Now, you might be wondering, wait, I thought speaking was the most important part of learning a language. Why should I focus more on listening? That's a great question, and the answer is actually quite simple. When you listen to English regularly, you are training your brain to understand the natural flow of the language, recognize common sentence structures, and absorb new words and phrases without even realizing it.
Yes. And the reason this is so effective is because listening is how we all naturally learn a language in the first place. Think about how babies learn to speak. Before they ever say their first words, they spend months and months just listening to the people around them. They don't study grammar rules or memorize vocabulary lists. They simply absorb the language by listening. And then, when they finally start speaking, they already know how words should sound, how sentences are structured, and how communication works in a natural way. The same principle applies to learning English as an adult. The more you listen, the more your brain gets used to how native speakers talk. And over time, you'll find that speaking becomes easier because your brain already has a solid foundation to build on.
Exactly. And listening doesn't just help you with pronunciation and vocabulary, it also helps you understand English faster in real-life situations. Have you ever had a conversation in English where the other person was speaking too quickly and you couldn't catch what they were saying? That happens to a lot of learners because they haven't had enough exposure to natural spoken English. But when you make listening a daily habit, you start recognizing words and phrases more quickly, and over time, your brain becomes faster at processing English. That means you won't have to translate everything in your head, and you'll be able to respond more naturally in conversations.
That's such a good point, Adam. And let's not forget about something really important. Listening helps you learn the right pronunciation. A lot of English learners struggle with pronunciation because they learn words by reading them, but they don't hear them spoken enough. English pronunciation can be tricky because some words are not pronounced the way they are spelled, and if you only rely on reading, you might pronounce things incorrectly without even realizing it. But when you listen regularly to native speakers, you train your ears to hear the correct pronunciation. And this helps you speak more clearly and naturally.
Absolutely. And one of the best things about improving your English through listening is that it's something you can do anytime, anywhere. You don't need a classroom, a teacher, or even a partner to practice with. You can improve your listening skills while driving, cooking, exercising, or even just relaxing. The key is to make it a daily habit, so your brain gets constant exposure to English. And the best part? There are so many fun and interesting ways to do this.
Yes. And that brings us to some practical tips on how you can improve your English fluency by listening every day. One of the easiest ways is by listening to English podcasts, just like this one. Podcasts are great because they allow you to hear real spoken English in a natural conversational way. Plus, you can find podcasts on almost any topic you're interested in, whether it's business, travel, sports, or even English learning. The more you listen, the more familiar English will become to you.
That's right. And another great way to practice listening is by watching movies and TV shows in English. But here's an important tip. When you watch, don't rely too much on subtitles in your native language. If you always read subtitles in your first language, your brain won't fully focus on the English being spoken. Instead, try using English subtitles, or even better, watch without subtitles and just listen carefully. At first, it might feel difficult, but over time, you'll start understanding more and more.
And let's not forget about music. Listening to English songs is another fantastic way to improve your listening skills. Music helps because it makes learning more fun and engaging, and the rhythm of songs helps you remember words and phrases more easily. Try listening to English songs and then looking up the lyrics. Sing along if you can. It will help with both pronunciation and fluency.
These are all great ways to improve listening skills, and the best part is, they don't feel like studying. You can enjoy a great movie, listen to a song, or hear an interesting podcast while improving your English at the same time. But here's one final tip. Don't just passively listen. Try to actively engage with what you hear. Repeat words and phrases out loud. Try to imitate the pronunciation and rhythm, and even talk back to the podcast or video as if you were part of the conversation. The more actively you listen, the more benefits you'll get.
That's such an important point. So, to summarize, listening more than you speak is one of the best ways to improve your fluency. When you listen regularly, you naturally pick up pronunciation, sentence structure, and new vocabulary. It helps you understand native speakers better and respond faster in conversations. And the best part is, there are so many fun and easy ways to practice, whether it's through podcasts, movies, TV shows, or music. Just make sure to listen actively and practice what you hear.
That's right. So, starting today, try to make listening a part of your daily routine. Find something you enjoy, maybe a podcast, a TV show, or even an audiobook, and listen for at least 15 to 30 minutes every day. If you stay consistent, you'll be amazed at how much your fluency improves in just a few weeks.
Yes. And now, let's move on to trick number 2, which will help you think in English instead of translating in your head. This is another game-changing technique that can help you speak more naturally and fluently. So, stay with us. Let's dive into the next trick.
All right. Now that we've covered the importance of listening and how it can significantly improve your fluency, let's move on to another crucial trick that will take your English speaking skills to the next level. This one is something that many learners struggle with, but once you master it, you'll notice a huge improvement in the way you speak and process English. The trick is to stop translating in your head and start thinking directly in English. Now, this might sound a little difficult at first, especially if you've spent years learning English by translating everything back and forth between your native language and English. But trust me, once you train your brain to think in English, speaking fluently will become much easier and much faster.
That's absolutely true, Adam. A lot of learners don't realize that translating in their head is one of the biggest obstacles to fluency. When you translate everything before speaking, it slows you down, makes conversations feel unnatural, and can even lead to awkward sentences because sometimes words and phrases don't have an exact translation between languages. Have you ever been in a situation where you wanted to say something in English, but you had to stop and think about how to translate it first? And then, by the time you figured out the right words, the conversation had already moved on? That happens to so many English learners, and it's frustrating. But the good news is that you can train your brain to think in English naturally, just like a native speaker, and it's easier than you might think.
Exactly. And here's something really interesting. When we speak our native language, we don't actually think about grammar rules, verb conjugations, or sentence structure. We just speak naturally because our brain is used to processing the language instantly. But when you're learning a second language, your brain tends to rely on translation as a crutch, which slows down your ability to respond quickly and naturally in conversations. So, the key to fluency is to break free from the habit of translating and train yourself to process English directly in English without switching back to your native language. And the best part? You don't need a classroom or a teacher to do this. You can start practicing right now, wherever you are.
Yes. And one of the simplest yet most powerful ways to train your brain to think in English is to start by naming things around you in English. This is an easy exercise that you can do anywhere, at any time, and it helps you develop the habit of using English without translating. For example, if you're sitting in your room right now, instead of thinking in your native language, look around and start naming the objects you see in English. You can say to yourself, "There is a table. I see a chair. The window is open. The lamp is on. My book is on the desk." The idea is to describe your surroundings using simple English words and phrases, so your brain gets used to processing information in English directly.
That's such a great exercise, Julia. And once you get comfortable with naming objects, you can take it a step further by describing what's happening around you in full sentences. Instead of just naming things, try forming short sentences in your mind about what's happening in your environment. For example, if you're at a cafe, instead of thinking in your native language and translating, say to yourself, "I am sitting at a table. The waiter is bringing a cup of coffee. There are many people talking. The weather is nice outside." By doing this, you are actively training your brain to process English naturally, without needing to translate word by word.
Yes. And another fun way to practice this is by narrating your daily activities in English. For example, when you wake up in the morning, instead of thinking in your native language, try thinking in English about what you're doing. You can say to yourself, I am getting out of bed. I am brushing my teeth. I am making breakfast. I am drinking tea. This might seem like a small change, but it's actually a powerful way to reprogram your brain to think in English automatically. The more you do this, the more natural it will feel, and soon you won't even have to force yourself to think in English. It will just happen automatically.
That's such a fantastic way to build the habit. And now, let's take this exercise a step further with a little role-play activity. Julia and I are going to describe a room without using translation, and you, our listeners, can try to do the same with your own surroundings. So, let's imagine that I'm sitting in my living room, and I want to describe it in English. I would say something like this. I am sitting on a comfortable sofa. The walls are light blue, and there is a big window on the left side of the room. There is a small wooden coffee table in front of me, with a book and a cup of tea on it. On the right side, there is a television, and next to it, there is a bookshelf filled with different books. The room is bright because sunlight is coming through the window.
That's a great example, Adam. And now, I'll do the same exercise with my own surroundings. Right now, I am sitting at my desk in my home office. My laptop is open in front of me, and next to it, there is a notebook and a pen. There is a small lamp on my desk, and it is turned on because the room is a little dark. Behind me, there is a window with white curtains, and outside, I can see trees and some buildings. The walls of my office are light grey, and there are a few pictures hanging on them. My chair is comfortable, and I am drinking a cup of coffee while working.
That was great, Julia. And now we challenge our listeners to do the same. Take a moment, look around the room you're in, and try to describe it in English, either in your mind or by speaking out loud. Don't worry about making mistakes. The goal is to train your brain to think in English without translating. The more you do this, the easier it will become.
Yes, and one final tip. If you ever find yourself struggling to think of a word in English, don't switch back to your native language. Instead, try describing the word using simple English. For example, if you forget the word refrigerator, you can say, "It's the big cold thing in the kitchen where I keep my food fresh." This is called thinking around the word, and it's a skill that will help you speak more fluently without getting stuck.
That's such a great strategy. So, to summarize, thinking in English is one of the best ways to increase your fluency and speak more naturally. Start small by naming objects around you, then move on to describing your surroundings, and finally, try narrating your daily activities. The more you practice this, the less you'll rely on translation, and soon, English will start to feel just as natural as your native language.
Exactly. So, starting today, challenge yourself to think in English as much as possible. Even if it's just for a few minutes each day, it will make a huge difference in your fluency. And now, let's move on to trick number 3, which is all about practicing with simple conversations to improve your speaking skills even more. Let's get started.
All right. Now that we've covered how important it is to listen more and think directly in English, we're going to dive into another powerful trick to help you boost your English fluency. Practice with simple conversations. Now, I know many of you might feel a bit nervous or unsure about having conversations in English. Maybe you're afraid of making mistakes, or you might feel like your vocabulary isn't big enough to carry on a full conversation. But the truth is, the best way to improve your speaking skills is by actually practicing real conversations, and it doesn't have to be complicated at all. You can start with simple, everyday conversations that you're likely to have in your daily life.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. When you practice simple conversations, you get familiar with the kinds of dialogues you will actually use in the real world. Imagine, for example, that you're meeting a friend or ordering something at a cafe. These are things that you will do in real life, so practicing them will help you feel much more comfortable and confident. The great part about simple conversations is that they're easy to memorize and repeat, and because they're so practical, you can use them in many different situations. Plus, if you make a mistake, it's okay. We all make mistakes when learning a language, and the more you practice, the easier it will become to correct them.
Exactly. And when you practice, don't just listen to conversations. Actively participate. Even if you're by yourself, you can do this by imagining you're having the conversation out loud. For example, let's talk about something everyone has done at least once: ordering a coffee at a cafe. Now, this is a perfect example of a simple conversation you can practice on your own to boost your fluency. You don't need a cafe to practice. You can do it in your living room, in your kitchen, or even while you're on a walk. Imagine you're walking into a cafe and you're going to place an order. You can start by saying, "Hi, I'd like a medium latte, please." And then you might continue, "Could I have some sugar and milk with that?" As you continue with the conversation, you can practice replying to follow-up questions like, "Would you like anything else with your coffee?" Or, "What size would you prefer?" By doing this, you're not just memorizing phrases, but you're also preparing yourself to respond confidently and naturally when the situation happens in real life.
Yes. And another great part of this practice is that you get to hear how real conversations flow, even in simple situations. When you order something at a cafe, the barista might say something like, "Would you like your coffee hot or iced?" Or, "Do you want to add any flavors today?" And these are the types of follow-up questions that come up in many real-world interactions. By practicing these dialogues regularly, you'll start anticipating the next thing that might be said, which will help you feel more comfortable in those moments when they actually happen. And this is such an important skill because in real conversations, things don't always follow a script. You need to be ready for unexpected responses.
Exactly, Julia. And it's important to not just focus on what you're saying, but also on how you're saying it. In English, the tone of your voice and the way you express yourself are just as important as the words you choose. For example, when you greet someone in English, you can say, "Hi, how's it going?" Or, "Hello, how are you?" But the tone you use can change the meaning slightly. A friendly, warm tone will make the conversation more comfortable and approachable, while a flat tone might make you sound unsure or uninterested. That's why practicing simple greetings and small talk is so important. It gives you a chance to work on your expression and tone, which makes your speech sound more natural and confident.
And here's an easy exercise that you can do every single day. Pick a situation you're likely to face, like meeting a friend or introducing yourself to someone new, and imagine what that conversation would look like. For example, if you're meeting a friend for the first time, you can say, "Hi, my name is your name. It's so nice to meet you." Then practice asking questions like, "Where are you from?" Or, "What do you like to do in your free time?" By practicing these simple introductions and small talk, you'll start to feel much more prepared when you meet new people in English-speaking situations. And the more you practice, the less nervous you'll feel about these interactions. You'll be able to walk into a conversation knowing that you can confidently ask questions and respond naturally.
I love that exercise, Julia. And the key is to practice consistently, just a few minutes every day. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel, and soon you'll notice that you're able to carry on a conversation without thinking too much about it. And remember, the goal here isn't to speak perfectly. It's to build confidence and fluency by repeating simple conversations over and over again. If you do this daily, you'll see amazing progress. And one day, you'll realize that you're able to speak more easily and naturally, even in unfamiliar situations.
That's right, Adam. So, I encourage all of you listening to start practicing simple conversations today. Think of some basic situations, like ordering at a restaurant, meeting a friend, or introducing yourself, and practice them in English. The more you repeat these phrases and sentences, the easier it will be to have real conversations in the future. You'll notice that speaking in English starts to feel more natural and effortless.
And remember, you don't need a partner to practice with. You can practice on your own by talking to yourself out loud. Try to practice in the mirror, or even while you're walking or doing chores. The more you expose yourself to speaking, the quicker you'll get comfortable with it. It's all about getting out of your head and letting the words flow naturally.
Yes, exactly. And as we wrap up this section, I just want to remind you, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Making mistakes is a natural part of the learning process. In fact, it's often the best way to learn. So, practice these simple conversations and embrace the mistakes. They're stepping stones to becoming a more confident English speaker.
Well said, Julia. So, before we move on to our next trick, we want to encourage you to start practicing simple conversations every day. Remember, even if it's just a few minutes a day, it will add up over time and make a huge difference in your fluency. And in the next section, we're going to explore trick number 4, which will help you expand your vocabulary and use more advanced words. So stay tuned. All right, let's dive into trick number 4, which is an incredibly useful tip that will help you sound more fluent and natural when speaking English. Now, many learners spend a lot of time memorizing individual words, but here's the truth. Learning phrases is actually much more effective than memorizing just words. You might be thinking, what's the difference between learning a word and learning a phrase? Well, let me explain. When you learn individual words, you might know their meaning, but they can often feel disconnected and less useful when you try to speak. For example, if you learn the word go, you know that it means to move from one place to another. But that's just a single word. And in everyday English, people rarely just say go by itself. They often use it in phrases like go for a walk, go to the store, or go home. The thing is, when you learn these phrases, you start to sound more like a native speaker because you're using natural combinations of words that people actually say in real conversations.
Exactly, Adam. It's all about context. If you only know the word go, it can feel a little bit limited, and you might struggle when it comes to actually speaking. But if you know phrases like go for a walk, go to the store, or go home, you're giving yourself ready-made expressions that will help you express yourself much more clearly and naturally. Think about it. In every language, people tend to speak in chunks of words rather than just single words. It's like a puzzle. Each phrase is a piece that fits into the bigger picture of what you want to say.
Exactly. And the beauty of learning phrases is that once you learn a common phrase, you don't need to think too much when it comes time to use it. It just becomes automatic. So, let's take a look at some real-life examples of phrases you can learn that will help you in everyday conversations. These are all phrases that native speakers use all the time, so if you learn them, you'll be able to sound much more fluent. Let's start with the verb go, a very common verb in English. Now, rather than memorizing go by itself, here are some helpful phrases. Go for a walk. This is a common phrase to use when you want to talk about going outside and walking for exercise or relaxation. Go to the store. This is useful when you need to talk about going shopping or running errands. Go home. This is something you'll say when you're ready to return to your house or place of residence. Go to bed. A simple, everyday phrase used when you want to talk about going to sleep. Go out. This is used when you leave your house for social activities, like going out with friends or going to a restaurant.
Great examples, Adam. And notice how these phrases give you more context. Go for a walk tells you where you're going and what you're doing. It's not just the verb go on its own. It's a whole idea that's ready to be used in a sentence. And you can see that each phrase is a little more specific than just using the verb go. For example, if you only know the word eat, that's helpful. But what if you want to say, I want to eat dinner, or let's eat out tonight? These are much more useful phrases to know. And as you learn more phrases like this, you'll start to notice how much more fluid and natural your speech becomes.
Exactly. And the thing about learning phrases is that it helps you build a mental toolbox of ready-to-use expressions that you can draw on in different situations. Instead of trying to come up with individual words on the spot, you can focus on using whole phrases that make your speech sound more connected and smooth. Let's look at another example with the verb take. This is another verb that's used in lots of phrases, and it's essential to know how to use it naturally. So, rather than just memorizing take, here are some phrases that will be much more useful in conversation. Take a break. You'll use this when you want to stop working for a short time, especially at school or at work. Take your time. This phrase is often used to tell someone to not rush and take as long as they need. Take care. A common way to say goodbye to someone, wishing them well. Take a photo. This is used when you want to capture a picture with a camera or phone. Take part in. This phrase is used when you participate in an activity like a meeting, a class, or an event.
Those are fantastic examples, Adam. And you'll notice that each of these phrases helps you express specific actions or situations in a much clearer way. Instead of just using the word take in isolation, you're using a phrase that's much more practical and easily understood by native speakers. Plus, once you learn phrases like these, you can use them in various situations with minimal effort, making you sound more like a natural speaker. But let's go beyond verbs. Nouns and adjectives also have their own set of useful phrases. For instance, with the word help, here are some common phrases you can learn. Need help. A quick way to ask if someone needs assistance. Give me a hand. Another way to ask for help, often used when you need someone to physically assist you with something. Help out. This means to assist someone in a general sense. For example, I'll help out with the cleaning. Be of help. A phrase that's often used when you want to offer assistance, like, I hope I can be of help to you.
Exactly. And these phrases work the same way as the ones we've already discussed. By learning phrases like, need help, or give me a hand, you're able to quickly ask for assistance without having to think about how to put individual words together. The more phrases you know, the less you'll have to focus on building sentences from scratch, and the more natural your speaking will become. You'll start to feel more confident because you have a mental list of phrases that you can easily pull from in any conversation.
And let's not forget about expressions and common idioms. Native speakers love using expressions and idiomatic phrases, and when you learn them, it'll really help you sound fluent and confident. For example, break the ice. This means to start a conversation or make people feel more comfortable in a social situation. On the same page, this is used when two people agree or understand something in the same way. Hit the nail on the head. This means to be exactly right about something.
These kinds of idiomatic phrases are a huge part of natural English. You'll hear them often in casual conversations, movies, and songs. And the more you practice them, the more you'll start to sound like a native speaker because you're using the same expressions that they would.
Yes, exactly. And remember, it's not just about memorizing these phrases. It's about using them in context. Practice them in your daily conversations, try them out when you're speaking with others, and see how you can incorporate them into your own speech. The more you use them, the more natural they will sound.
Exactly, Julia. So, as a takeaway from today's trick, start focusing on phrases, not just individual words. Whenever you come across a new word, try to learn it in the context of a useful phrase. Not only will this help you speak more naturally, but it will also help you understand how native speakers use language in real life.
And don't worry about making mistakes. The important thing is to keep practicing and experimenting with these phrases until they become second nature. You'll be surprised at how quickly you improve once you start thinking and speaking in phrases.
Well said, Julia. So, in our next section, we'll cover another amazing trick to help you improve your English fluency. But before we do that, I want you to take a moment and think about some phrases you use in your own language. Start translating those phrases into English, and you'll quickly build your own mental list of useful expressions. Let's keep learning and practicing together. All right, listeners, we've now reached trick number 5, and this is one that will truly make a huge difference in your English fluency. This trick is simple, but it's incredibly powerful when practiced regularly. The trick is to read out loud every day. Now, you might think that reading silently is enough, but when you read out loud, you engage a whole new set of skills. You're not just recognizing the words on the page, You're actively using your mouth, voice, and mind in a way that helps improve pronunciation, fluency, and confidence. Many English learners miss this step, but speaking out loud really pushes you to work on the sounds and rhythms of the language, making it one of the most effective ways to become fluent more quickly.
Absolutely, Adam. Reading out loud is so much more than just practicing words on paper. It's about getting your mouth used to making the right sounds. When you read silently, your brain understands the meaning of the words, but your mouth isn't practicing the motions it needs to make those sounds naturally. By reading aloud, you're essentially giving your mouth muscles a workout. Your tongue, lips, and teeth all play a part in pronouncing English sounds correctly. You'll be training your body to speak the language more easily and accurately, and that's something that will have a big impact on your fluency in the long run. And of course, intonation, the rise and fall of your voice, plays a huge role too. How you say something is just as important as what you say, and reading out loud helps you practice that natural flow of speech.
Exactly. And what's even better is that reading aloud gives you immediate feedback. When you speak out loud, you get to hear whether or not you're pronouncing words correctly, and you can adjust as you go. This is especially helpful when you come across difficult words or sounds that you might not be familiar with. For example, English has a lot of tricky sounds that many learners struggle with, like the tick sound in words like think or through. These are the types of sounds that might not exist in your native language, so you might not be used to making them. But when you read out loud, you can repeat these words and sounds as many times as necessary until they feel comfortable. And that's how you build confidence with tricky words and pronunciation.
Absolutely. And speaking of confidence, reading out loud is also an amazing way to build your confidence in speaking. If you feel nervous about speaking in English with other people, reading aloud allows you to practice in a safe, private setting. You can work through difficult sentences, improve your pronunciation, and practice the rhythm of English, all without worrying about making mistakes in front of anyone. This kind of practice is crucial because it helps take away the fear and anxiety many learners feel when speaking English. When you're confident in your ability to read out loud, you're more likely to feel comfortable speaking English in real-life conversations too.
And it's not just about confidence. Reading out loud also plays a key role in improving your fluency. Fluency is about being able to speak smoothly without too many pauses or hesitations. When you read aloud, you're training yourself to speak at a natural pace. This helps you get used to speaking continuously, without stopping to think about every word. It helps you get comfortable with the flow of the language. You may start off slowly, but over time, you'll find that your sentences become more fluid and you'll be able to speak with greater ease and confidence.
And don't forget about pronunciation. That's another area where reading aloud can make a significant difference. In English, there are many words that can be hard to pronounce, especially if they have sounds that don't exist in your native language. When you read aloud, you get the chance to focus on the pronunciation of each word, paying attention to how it's supposed to sound in natural speech. For example, English has some sounds that can be tricky, like the difference between the V and W sounds, or the silent letters in words like night or comb. These might be challenging at first, but the more you practice reading them out loud, the more familiar and comfortable they will become.
That's a great point, Julia. Another benefit of reading aloud is that it allows you to practice intonation, which is how your voice rises and falls when you speak. Intonation is so important in English because it helps convey meaning, even in simple sentences. For example, the sentence, "You're going to the store," could be said with a falling intonation if you're making a statement, or with a rising intonation if you're asking a question, like, "You're going to the store?" The key is to practice getting that natural rise and fall in your voice, and reading aloud gives you the perfect opportunity to practice this and hear how it should sound.
Exactly. So, reading aloud not only improves pronunciation and intonation, but it also helps with fluency by giving you a chance to practice speaking naturally and confidently. This is something you can do every day, no matter how much time you have. Even if you only have 10 minutes a day, it's still incredibly beneficial. The more you practice reading aloud, the more comfortable you'll feel when it's time to speak in a real conversation. Over time, your mouth and brain will start to recognize common English patterns, and you'll feel more confident in using those patterns in everyday conversations.
So, to make this trick work for you, the key is consistency. Read aloud every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. It doesn't matter if you're reading a book, an article, or even a short dialogue from your favorite movie or TV show. The important thing is that you're practicing the sounds and rhythms of English out loud. The more you do it, the more natural it will feel. Eventually, you'll notice that you're able to speak more fluidly and with more confidence in real conversations.
And one great tip I recommend is to record yourself while reading aloud. It might feel a little strange at first, but it's a fantastic way to hear how you sound and spot areas for improvement. When you listen to your recording, you'll be able to notice things like your intonation, whether your voice sounds natural, or if there's any word or sound you're struggling with. This will help you fine-tune your speaking skills even further. It's a great tool to track your progress and see just how much improvement you're making.
That's a fantastic tip, Julia. And as we wrap up this trick, let's practice together. We'll read a short paragraph, and I encourage everyone listening to repeat after us. This will give you a chance to work on your pronunciation, intonation, and fluency all at once. Let's do this.
All right, now it's your turn. Repeat after us and focus on your pronunciation and intonation. Don't worry if it's not perfect right away. The more you practice, the better you'll get.
All right, let's dive into trick number 6, which I think is one of the most valuable tools in your English learning journey: recording yourself speaking. Now, you might be asking yourself, why should I record myself? I already speak to people in English sometimes, so isn't that enough? And here's the thing. When you speak with others, it's hard to catch every single detail in real time. You're focusing on the conversation, trying to keep up, and of course, you don't always have the opportunity to stop and evaluate your own speaking. This is where recording yourself makes such a huge difference. When you record yourself speaking, you create an opportunity to listen to your own voice from an entirely different perspective. You get to step outside of the conversation and become your own language coach, which is incredibly powerful because self-correction becomes so much easier.
Exactly. Recording yourself offers something that you don't get in a normal conversation. It gives you a moment to really pause and reflect on your speech. When you hear your voice recorded, you'll notice things that you didn't even realize you were doing when you were speaking. For example, you might realize that you're hesitating before certain words, or perhaps you're mispronouncing a word without even noticing. It's much harder to spot these things in real time when you're caught up in the flow of a conversation. But when you play back a recording, you can really hear yourself. And that's when you start to recognize those small mistakes that may otherwise go unnoticed. And here's the thing. Once you notice the mistakes, you can immediately correct them and focus on improving them in your next recording.
Exactly, Julia. This kind of self-correction is key to improving fluency. For example, let's say you've been using a word incorrectly, or you've been skipping certain sounds when you speak. When you listen to yourself speak, you'll be able to hear whether or not you're pronouncing things properly. Maybe you've been saying library instead of library, or mixing up V and W sounds, which is common for learners of English. The beauty of recording yourself is that you get a chance to correct these mistakes on your own time, without the pressure of a conversation or the need to immediately respond. And the more you do this, the more natural it becomes. And over time, those mistakes will get smaller and smaller.
And here's another fantastic part about recording yourself: tracking your progress. A lot of times, learners feel unsure of how much they've actually improved over time, but when you go back and listen to old recordings, you'll be amazed at the difference you hear. You'll start to notice that your pronunciation is clearer, your sentences are more fluid, and you're speaking with more confidence. You might even pick up on things that were once difficult for you but are now easier to say. It's a great feeling, and it really boosts your motivation when you can hear the growth in your own speaking. It's like having a time machine. You can go back and see exactly where you were and how far you've come.
And let's not forget, listening to your own recordings also gives you the chance to improve your intonation and rhythm. English is all about how you say things, not just what you say. And when you record yourself, you can really pay attention to your voice's rise and fall, how you emphasize words, and the natural rhythm of your sentences. Often, learners will get the words right, but may sound a bit flat or robotic because they're not paying attention to the intonation. Recording and listening to yourself allows you to catch these details and improve how you sound. For example, if you were to say the sentence, "I can't believe this is happening," you need to make sure your voice rises slightly on believe and then falls on happening to make the sentence sound natural. This is something that recording can really help with because you get to focus on how you're saying things, not just the words themselves.
Definitely, Adam. Now, let's talk about how to get started with this. The great thing is, you don't need any fancy equipment to record yourself. Your phone or computer is enough. So, where should you begin? Well, I suggest starting with something simple, like recording a short story about your day. This is a really natural and easy way to practice because you're talking about things you already know. For example, you can describe your morning routine, what you did at work or school, or what you had for lunch. Doing this allows you to practice using past tense for events that have already happened and present tense for what's happening now. This is a great exercise because you can talk about a wide range of topics, and it forces you to organize your thoughts in a structured way. Plus, you'll naturally use different vocabulary as you describe all of the events of your day.
I love that idea, Julia. And here's the bonus part about recording your day. It helps you practice storytelling. In a lot of real-life conversations, you'll need to explain something that happened to you, whether it's a funny incident at work or something interesting you saw on your way home. If you can record yourself doing this, you'll get better at telling stories in English. You'll get better at sequencing events in the correct order, using the right verbs, and adding little details that make your story more engaging. It's a fantastic way to practice using more complex sentence structures and expand your vocabulary while telling a story.
Exactly. And let's make it a little more fun. Another great challenge you can try is recording yourself explaining the plot of your favorite movie or TV show. This might sound like a simple task, but it's actually an excellent way to practice your English. When you talk about a movie, you have to describe the characters, the setting, the main plot, and even the emotions of the characters. You'll need to use vocabulary that's related to actions, feelings, and events. For example, instead of just saying, "The movie was good," you could say, "The main character was a detective who had to solve a mysterious case. Throughout the film, he faced challenges and overcame them, but it wasn't until the end that the true villain was revealed." As you explain the plot, you'll practice using past tenses, talking about sequences of events, and using more descriptive language.
That's a great suggestion, Julia. You'll find that recording yourself explaining a movie or show plot will challenge you in new ways. You'll have to pay attention to the little details, the plot twists, character motivations, and settings, while making sure that you're speaking in a natural and engaging way. And it doesn't hurt that you'll be having fun doing it because, let's be honest, talking about your favorite movie or TV show is always exciting. You'll likely find that as you do this exercise over time, your fluency will improve because you're practicing speaking with more complex ideas and natural flow.
Exactly, Adam. So, here's your challenge for today. Record yourself speaking, whether it's talking about your day, explaining the plot of your favorite movie, or even telling a funny story. Listen to it afterward and pay close attention to your pronunciation, intonation, and any small mistakes that you might have missed during the conversation. Make a habit of recording yourself regularly, and you'll start to notice real improvements in how you speak English. Plus, it's an amazing way to track your progress and see just how far you've come.
And don't be afraid to listen to yourself. It might feel awkward at first, but trust us, it's one of the most effective ways to improve. So, get out your phone or computer, record yourself today, and start noticing those small changes that will help you speak more confidently and fluently. You've got this. All right, we've reached trick number 7, and honestly, I think this might be the most important one of all. It's something that holds so many people back from truly improving their English, and that's the fear of making mistakes. It's completely normal to feel nervous about making errors when you're speaking a new language. But here's the big secret. Mistakes are an essential part of learning. In fact, the more mistakes you make, the faster you'll learn. Think of mistakes as stepping stones that lead to improvement. Every time you make one, you get closer to mastering the language. So, let go of that fear and embrace the fact that you will make mistakes, and that's perfectly okay.
Exactly, Adam. A lot of learners get so focused on avoiding mistakes that they hesitate to speak at all. They're afraid of saying something wrong or not being understood. But the reality is, if you avoid speaking because you're scared of making errors, you're only preventing yourself from improving. You can't get better at speaking if you're not actually speaking. Mistakes are part of the learning process, and they are a sign that you're trying. It's like when a child is learning to walk. They fall down over and over again, but each time they get a little closer to taking that first step on their own. Learning a language is the same way. Each mistake you make is a step toward becoming a better speaker.
And let's be honest, everyone makes mistakes, not just beginners. Even native speakers make mistakes all the time, whether it's a grammatical error, a mispronunciation, or even forgetting a word. It's not a big deal. In fact, most people don't even notice when a native speaker makes a mistake because it's so common. The key thing to remember is that making mistakes shows that you're actively using the language. If you're not making mistakes, it probably means you're not practicing enough, and that's a problem. So don't worry about making them, and don't let them stop you from speaking. The more you speak, the more mistakes you'll make, and the quicker you'll improve. So, let's give ourselves permission to make mistakes and keep going.
You know, Adam, I've made so many mistakes in my own language learning journey. I remember when I first started learning French. There were so many times I said things that didn't make sense at all. For example, I once tried to say, "I'm looking forward to seeing you" in French, but instead I said, "I'm looking forward to watching you," which sounded a bit creepy. And you know what? Everyone laughed, but they also appreciated the fact that I was trying. It didn't matter that I made a mistake. What mattered was that I kept going. And that's the key. So don't be afraid of making mistakes, because each mistake teaches you something new.
Ha ha ha, Julia. That's a great example. And I bet those mistakes helped you remember that particular phrase even better, right? That's the thing with mistakes. They stick with you. You're much more likely to remember something you've made a mistake with than something that's just come easily. And sometimes, the funniest mistakes are the ones that teach us the most. I've made my fair share of mistakes too, and I'll tell you, they still make me laugh. Like the time I was trying to say "I'm full" after eating a big meal in Spanish. But instead of saying "estoy lleno," I'm full, I accidentally said "estoy embarazado," which means I'm pregnant. Of course, everyone around me started laughing, and I was totally embarrassed. But the best part was that I learned the difference between those two words, and now I'll never forget them.
Ha ha ha, that's too funny, Adam. But you see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Mistakes like that stick with you. They create funny memories, and you'll always remember the lesson that came from them. And even though those mistakes felt awkward at the time, they made us better at speaking because we learned from them. So, here's what we want you to take away from this trick. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are not something to avoid, they're something to embrace. Every time you make a mistake, you're learning and you're getting better. The more you speak, the more mistakes you'll make, but the more fluent and confident you'll become.
And it's not just about language mistakes either. Think about cultural mistakes. Those happen all the time when learning a new language. For example, You might misinterpret a social situation or say something that isn't quite appropriate in a certain context. But again, that's okay. It's part of the process of becoming culturally fluent as well. The key is to be open to learning, laugh at yourself, and don't take it personally. If you make a mistake, just laugh it off, learn from it, and move forward. Perfection is not the goal. Progress is. The goal is to keep improving, and mistakes are how we do that.
Exactly, Adam. And you know what's really important. Not only should you not be afraid of making mistakes, but you should also celebrate them. Each mistake is an opportunity to improve, so instead of feeling bad about it, try to see it as a victory. You're learning, and that's the whole point of practicing a new language. Think about it. Every time you make a mistake and correct it, you're one step closer to fluency. You're training your brain to think in English, to process English more quickly, and to make fewer mistakes in the future. So every mistake is progress.
And you know, one of the best ways to keep yourself motivated and keep going is to surround yourself with people who understand that mistakes are part of the process. Whether it's a language partner, a teacher, or even just fellow learners, it helps to be around others who are also learning. It takes the pressure off and reminds you that you're not alone. Everyone is making mistakes, and everyone is learning. So, don't be afraid to share your mistakes with others. They're part of your journey and they can make for some fun stories along the way.
That's so true, Adam. And here's a fun challenge for all of you listening today. The next time you make a mistake in English, whether it's a small mistake with grammar or a funny mispronunciation, don't be embarrassed. Share it with a friend, a language partner, or even on social media if you're comfortable with it. You'll see that others will laugh with you, not at you, and they'll probably share their own mistakes too. It's a great way to remind yourself that everyone makes mistakes, and the key is just to keep going and learn from them.
And remember, even native speakers make mistakes. They do it all the time. In fact, they're not even aware of some of the mistakes they make because they've been speaking for so long that it feels natural. But guess what? It's not perfect English every time. So, if native speakers can make mistakes and still be understood, then why shouldn't you be able to make mistakes while you're learning? It's all part of the process, and you'll only improve by making those mistakes and getting the experience.
Absolutely. So, let's wrap up this trick with a reminder to all our listeners. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Mistakes are not something to fear. They are a vital part of learning, and they help you grow. Keep speaking, keep practicing, and most importantly, enjoy the journey. The more mistakes you make, the more fluent and confident you'll become. So, embrace your mistakes, laugh at them, and keep improving every day.
That's right, Julia. Mistakes are not your enemy. In fact, they are your best friend in language learning. So go out there, speak, make those mistakes, and just keep moving forward. The more you speak, the better you'll get. You've got this, and we believe in you. Well, here we are, at the end of our episode today on 7 simple tricks to boost your English fluency fast. Let's quickly recap all of the powerful tricks we've shared with you, just to make sure you have everything in mind as you start your journey toward fluency.
That's right, Adam. So, here's a quick summary of the tricks we discussed today. Listen more than you speak. Remember, listening is key. The more you listen to native speakers through podcasts, movies, and songs, the better you'll understand pronunciation, rhythm, and natural vocabulary. Think in English. It's time to stop translating in your head. Start thinking directly in English, and practice this by naming things around you in English. This will help you speak more naturally and confidently. Practice with simple conversations. Don't hesitate to start practicing everyday conversations. Whether it's ordering coffee, meeting a friend, or introducing yourself, practicing these simple dialogues regularly will help you gain confidence in real-life situations. Learn phrases, not just words. Phrases are much more useful than individual words. Learn and practice common phrases that native speakers use every day, and you'll sound more fluent and natural. Read out loud every day. Reading out loud helps improve pronunciation, fluency, and confidence. So, take a few minutes every day to read something out loud. It doesn't matter what it is, just keep reading. Record yourself speaking. Recording yourself allows you to listen to your own voice and correct mistakes. Try explaining your day or your favorite movie plot and listen to yourself to spot areas for improvement. Don't be afraid of mistakes. Mistakes are a natural part of learning. Don't be afraid to make them. Embrace them as valuable learning opportunities. The more mistakes you make, the faster you'll improve.
Exactly. All of these tricks are so simple, but when you practice them consistently, they can make a massive difference in your fluency. Remember, consistency is key. It's not about perfection, it's about making steady progress every day. So if you want to improve your English fast, the secret is to practice daily. Now, we know it might feel overwhelming at first. You might think, where do I start? How do I fit all of this into my busy schedule? But don't worry, just take it one step at a time. You don't need to do everything all at once. Pick one trick that resonates with you the most and start there. Focus on small, consistent actions, and over time, you'll see amazing progress.
That's right, Adam. The key is to start small and be consistent. If you practice listening every day for 10 minutes, or if you try thinking in English as you go about your day, you'll be surprised at how quickly you start to feel more comfortable. The goal is to stay motivated and remember that every little bit of practice counts. Even if you only have a few minutes each day, make the most of it. It adds up, and before you know it, you'll be speaking English with more confidence and ease.
Absolutely. And remember, it's all about progress, not perfection. There will be days when it feels tough, and that's completely normal. But what matters is that you keep going. Just like we mentioned earlier, mistakes are a part of the process. So, embrace them, learn from them, and keep moving forward. The more you practice, the easier it will get, and the faster you'll see improvement. And hey, don't forget to have fun along the way. Learning a language should be an exciting adventure, not a stressful task. Enjoy the process of discovering new words, new phrases, and new ways to express yourself. And don't be afraid to make it a daily habit. The more you immerse yourself in English, the more natural it will become.
Exactly. And now we want to hear from you. Which of these 7 tricks will you try first? Do you feel inspired to start listening more to English podcasts? Or maybe you'll focus on reading out loud every day. Whatever it is, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you plan to start using these tricks in your daily routine. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the English Globe if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on more tips, tricks, and motivation to keep improving your English. We're here to help you on your language learning journey every step of the way.
Absolutely. We really appreciate you joining us today. You've already taken the first big step by tuning into this episode, so give yourself a pat on the back. Now, the most important thing is to keep going. Don't stop here. Take what you've learned and start practicing today. Even if it's just a few minutes, keep building those daily habits. English fluency is possible for you, and with consistent effort, you'll get there faster than you think. So, go ahead and make today the day you start using these tricks. Whether you're listening to a podcast, reading out loud, or recording yourself, take action right now. You can do this, and we're cheering you on every step of the way.
And remember, the journey to fluency doesn't happen overnight, but with patience, practice, and dedication, you'll get there. Just keep going, and you will speak English fluently. We believe in you.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Keep practicing, stay motivated, and we'll see you in the next episode. You've got this.